Good Chodesh. We continue with our series of selections from the HaChaim HaKodesh Parshas HaShavua, and it's all dedicated to be a schus, lirfua, Aryela, Rína, Bas, Esther, betach shar chol Yisrael, lirfua Shlema, Gemura, umuchletet, tekef umiyad, her and all the cholim of Am Yisrael. So the pasuk says, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu has smelled Noach's carbon, and he has pleasure from it. So Baruch Hashem etzreach hanichoach, v'amar Hashem al libo, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, to himself. We're not going to get into what el libo means, but it means that he encoded it in his central plan for reality. This has become a cosmic rule. Okay. Lo osif l'kal odes ha'adama ba'avor adam. I am not going to curse the whole world, the earth, because of man. Ki yetzer lev adam raminu urav, for man's, the yetzer in his heart is bad from childhood, from the beginning, as Rashi brings a diuk. Doesn't mean urav doesn't just mean from. So it means from the time he's born. Lo osif od la'akol says kol chaya kasher, and I'm not going to again, smite all that lives as I have done by the mabul. So the obvious question is that this for man is rotten, right? His heart is rotten from the time he's born, right? That why are you bringing that up? That's that kind of is counterproductive to the point that's being made here. Parshas Baruch Hu is taking a vow to never again obliterate the whole world, at least with water. Never to bring total obliteration and you could easily read from the beginning. That's just a point that counters the point, the main point that Hashem is trying to make, that he's never going to do it again. You would think that, of course, at least don't say that, because that's a reason to obliterate. You would think, it's just it totally disrupts the continuity of the pasuk, and not just with something superfluous, but something that's kind of anti the point that the pasuk is making. HaKadosh Hu will never obliterate the world again, but because man is rotten from childhood, he's never going to smite everything again. So it's a very difficult pasuk. So the HaChaim comes up with a very creative solution. And it's a very deep idea also, that he invokes the halacha of the shorait stadin. Right, so we know that the Torah even punishes animals when they kill, right? Even though they don't have free will, but nonetheless, an animal that kills is killed. Right? The shor hamuad is a case that the animal escaped, or it was never convicted until. They never managed to convict the shore until it managed to kill 3 times already, right? But min hadin, any animal that kills is killed right away. Now here's an interesting, halacha of the shoreit stadin, right? The ox used in bullfights seems to be a very ancient bad custom of mankind to train oxen to go and try to kill a man, and engage in a bullfight, with a matador. So the halacha is ki yigach shor v'lo shegichu acherim, right? That the Torah always said, if a shore will gore, so you're going to kill the shore. If the shore will gore, but lo shegichu acherim, but not if it was provoked by others to gore, and that shore doesn't get killed. It walks. It's called it was done under duress because it was trained to do so. So the shoreit stadin, so let's just explain this more, because it has been previously trained and conditioned to be a killer. So even if at the moment it is not being no one's doing anything to actively provoke it to be megiach, but it's already trained, it's conditioned. And therefore, that shore will not be put to death. Right? It's as it were, conditioned, brainwashed, call it what you want. Right? It's not its fault. It's been conditioned that way. All right. So we see that conditioning is a real has a real legal premise to it, that it's called a level of onus. It's called a level of duress, and it absolves of a certain level of responsibility. Okay, so says the HaChaim, this is really what the Torah is alluding to, right? That because man has a Yetzer Hara from the get-go, and so of course with our intellect and our education, we get educated, and the Yetzer Tov finally settles in 13 years too late, after we're born. So we overcome, but we have this terrible predisposition towards evil that's struck deep roots, 13 years worth of conditioning, and started from the beginning of the Yetzer in the heart of man. So says the HaChaim, the Torah is pointing out that the Rebbe Shem is inserting a level of justice, because after all, this is not going to be like a freebie. This is going to be a cosmic law. To explain what the HaChaim is coming to explain, this is going to be a cosmic law. If it's going to be a law, there has to be some justice to it. If it's just a one-off, okay, it doesn't have to have any justice to it. It's a freebie. This is not a freebie. This is Be'er Hashem Libo. This is going to be a cosmic law, that man is, as it were, protected, permanently shielded from obliteration. We're going to explain what that means. Right? That is not going to destroy the whole human race ever. Right? People will be punished. There will be punishment. There won't be obliteration of the whole race. Right? And it's going to be a law. So if it's going to be a law, there has to be a certain level of justice to it. We've also explained the justice. Man has a handicap. There's something rotten about him from the beginning, and that creates a great deal of conditioning. So that creates a certain level of onus, not an absolute onus. By the shore, it's an absolute onus. Okay, and that's when I said before, onus on a certain level of duress. I was really referring to the Adam. All right, because we do have a Yetzer Tov, and we do have intellect that could overcome our animal side, our conditioned animal side, rotten, conditioned animal side. We do have a Yetzer HaTov, and we do have Das that could overcome it, but you got that serious handicap of a very of an animal side that's conditioned no less than a fighting bull, right? And so it's a certain level of duress that of course every human being has to give din v'cheshbon on their choices. But since there's a level of duress over there, we are shielded from the din of utter and total obliteration. So let's say even if a whole nation is, like the Nazis, are guilty of genocide, the Rebbe Shem is not going to obliterate the whole human race, not even the whole German people, right? Every individual who actually engaged, will pay for the deeds that he did. But this level that was exhibited by the Mabul, that throughout everything, total obliteration, we're shielded from that, because there's a certain level of onus of the Lev Adam, Yetzer Lev Adam Ra Min Urav. Right, so there's that certain level of onus, and that's how the pasuk reads. I'm not going to curse the whole earth because man is rotten at the core from the beginning. So there's this handicap because he has a serious predisposition. 13 years worth of predisposition towards evil. That's heavy conditioning. And lo osivo la'akos kol chai, because there's not going to be ever something like the Mabul, where it's total obliteration. We're shielded from total obliteration. We have a level of onus to save us from the total obliteration din, right? But of course, every individual has to give din v'cheshbon. Why didn't he do his best to overcome his animal nature? But because there is that nature, that's why we're shielded from utter obliteration. But of course, every individual in the race, so the whole race won't be obliterated, but every individual will give din v'cheshbon. Why didn't you do your best to overcome, right, this bad nature that you have? Because you do have an intellect, you do have a neshama, you do have a Yetzer Tov, right? But since there is this serious handicap that we're up against, that's what shields us just from the din of utter obliteration. Right? But of course, individuals and even whole nations, will have to give some always give din v'cheshbon, right? But this is a legitimate taina as to why we are shielded from obliteration, and to explain why this ought to be necessary is because this is going to become a cosmic law. It's a law. So it's a law, so it has to make some type of legal sense. Right? So it's very deep HaChaim, and he just came to explain the pasuk, and the pasuk is very well explained that because of this handicap of being rotten from the beginning, right? So lo sif lahakos kol chai, right? That is a level of oinus that shields us from the din of utter obliteration, right? But everyone's got to pay for their choices and why they didn't do their best to overcome. So he came to explain the pasuk, but this idea is that is also invoked in using different words by the Maharal in the Nesivat Tshuva to explain why Tshuva, which is also a law. Tshuva is not a freebie, that's a one-off. It's a cosmic law. So if it's a cosmic law, it's got to make sense. There's got to be a level of justice because there's got to be just because in anything that's consistent, there's logic. Logic and justice are, for our purposes, are synonymous of, it's the order. It's the order. It's the way it should be if it's consistent. And it's something that you could rely on and bank on. It's consistent. It's a law. So it has to call it legal sense. It has to fit into a cause and effect framework. So tshuva is a law. It's not a one-off. If it's a one-off, then okay, so Baruch was over ala mishpat, right? He decided to suspend justice, right? But tshuva is not a suspension of justice. Maral explains. We have a legitimate taina when we say Ribono Shel Olam, I'm sorry, that wasn't the real me, because we have this animal side to us, and the animal side got the better of me, and it wasn't the real me. But now my intellect got more settled. Right, and I'm more, in my settled state of mind. Right, I totally regret it, and it's legitimate. It's not just words, because there's this Yetzer Levaram Ram and Urav, and then there's the intellect that only comes later, and that comes from a higher place, from the neshama, and so it's totally just say that's not the real me. That's not my real human side. So legitimizes tshuva. Tshuva makes sense. You know what this sounds like? The way I worded it to anyone, it should sound like hataras nedarim. All right, you made the neder, but then you say, "Oh, I did that. I wasn't thinking straight." And the Mesillas Yesharim indeed says, right, that tshuva works on the same mechanism as hataras nedarim, and that's the secret I heard from my Rebbe Nachum Lansky, that we say kol nidre. We open up Yom Kippur, which is Day of Tshuva, with kol nidre. They work on the same legal mechanism. This is all the same mechanism. Now we have an animal side, and it's totally legit to say when I did that or when I made that neder, that wasn't the real me. And this is the real me. This real me is my human side, not my animal side, my conditioned animal side. All right, so this legitimized, so it's a science of fact that this level of oinus, or HaChaim says, this is the level of oinus that saves us from the very unfortunate and special and only employed once a din of utter obliteration. There's still din v'cheshbon on the individual actions, right, and on the individuals, right? But even in that, right, since there is this animal side, this is what also legitimizes tshuva. Why tshuva is legit? It's not just words. You're just saying you're sorry. No. This was not the real me. This came from my animal side, my conditioned animal side, and but now my das is in charge. And same mechanism of hataras nedarim. So Rosh should help, right? That the we should. This is the human battle of trying to, that the intellect and the koach haneshama and koach yetzor should dominate. The yetzer that's ram min urav, but the Ribono is fully aware of that handicap that we're up against, and the Ribono makes provisions for it that are mamish, encoded in the law of how the cosmos works. Right, Ribono to always be misgaber, right, and we should be proud, of our human side that has overcome our animal side. Amen. Ken Yerotzen. Lirfua Aryela Rína Bas Esther.